Sometimes you reach a point where it feels like nothing is changing. You pray, you push, you try, and still life looks the same. That's when your mind starts telling you God forgot about you. But that's the moment you need to remind yourself that silence is not absence. God does some of his strongest work in seasons where you see absolutely nothing happening. You don't always get the privilege of watching God's plan unfold. Some breakthroughs develop in the dark. Just like seeds grow underground, your blessing is growing even when it looks like nothing is taking shape on the surface. And the crazy part is, by the time it finally shows up, it won't look like anything you expected. There are things God is aligning right now that you have no clue about. Conversations are being had about you. Doors are being built for you. Opportunities are being fashioned for you. Just because you can't trace his hand doesn't mean he stopped moving it. God doesn't need your updates to keep working. We get stressed because we judge progress by sight. We want evidence. We want signs. But God is not obligated to show you the blueprint while he's still building the structure. Sometimes he hides the process so you don't interfere with it. You've got to trust that the unseen is still active. The enemy loves to whisper doubts when you see nothing. He wants you to assume the silence means failure. But God operates on a different frequency. He hides miracles in moments that feel empty. He hides movement in moments that feel still. He hides answers in moments that feel quiet. You've got to learn to rest in the idea that unseen doesn't mean undone. God is working behind your stress, behind your confusion, behind your impatience. Even when your situation looks frozen, heaven is still moving on your behalf. You keep thinking you're falling behind in life. You look at other people's progress, their results, their timelines, and you start panicking. But God is not measuring your life by someone else's schedule. He's aligning you for something specific, something tailored, something meant only for you. The reason things feel slow is because your blessing has a personalized route. It's not coming through the same path as theirs. And when God is preparing something specifically for you, it takes the time it needs. Not too early, not too late, exactly where it fits your future. Sometimes God delays you to protect you. You don't know the dangers he's blocking. You don't know the conversations he's preventing. You don't know the wrong connections he's steering you away from. You call it delay, God calls it safety. You call it slow, God calls it strategic. Your stress comes from comparing timelines. But comparison is the thief of peace. Your assignment has a unique clock. Your purpose has a unique pace. And every time you compare yourself to someone else, you dishonor the path God specifically designed for you. You are not missing anything. You are not behind schedule. You are not off track. God is lining you up with the right season, the right timing, the right relationships, the right environment. When everything aligns, what took years will feel like it happened overnight. You're not late, you're in preparation. You're not forgotten, you're being positioned. And when the alignment hits, you'll understand why God made you wait the way he did. You're tired because you're trying to fix things that were never your job to fix. Some of you are carrying burdens that were supposed to be in God's hands. You're trying to change people who don't want to change. You're trying to control outcomes you don't have the power to influence. And that's why you feel drained. There are situations in your life that only God can fix. You can't repair a heart he's trying to reshape. You can't force timing he's trying to reorder. You can't open doors he's deliberately keeping shut. But stress makes you believe you have to be the repairman for everything. Sometimes God allows things to break so you stop depending on yourself. He allows certain situations to fall apart because if they stayed together, you'd never turn them over to him. You'd keep trying to glue together pieces he wants to replace altogether. When you try to fix what God is fixing, you slow down the process. You interfere. You get in the way. It's like a child trying to help an adult fix something complicated. They only make it worse. God is not asking for your assistance. He's asking for your surrender. It takes courage to stop fixing everything. It takes faith to step back and say, God, I'm not fighting this anymore. It's in your hands now. But the moment you release it, that's when you start seeing solutions you couldn't create. That's when clarity shows up. That's when peace enters. You're stressing over something God already has instructions for. Step back and make room for Him to do the work only He can do. Think back over your life. Think about the times you stressed, panicked, overthought, lost sleep, and worried yourself sick. And then think about how every single one of those situations worked out anyway. Not because of your worry, but because God stepped in. Worry gives you the illusion of control. It makes you feel like you're doing something. But worry produces nothing. It doesn't solve a single issue. It doesn't move a single obstacle. It doesn't shift a single circumstance. It just drains you mentally and spiritually. Meanwhile, God has changed situations you couldn't even understand. He reversed outcomes that should have taken you out. He opened doors you didn't qualify for. He protected you from things you never even knew about. And none of it required your worry. Worry magnifies the problem. Faith magnifies the solution. Worry looks at what's wrong. Faith looks at who's in control. Worry drains your strength. Faith refuels it. And every time you choose worry over faith, you shrink what God is capable of doing in your mind. You've got to train yourself to interrupt worry with truth. When your mind starts spinning, remind yourself of what God has already done. Remind yourself of what He's already proven. Remind yourself of how many times He pulled you through when you thought it was over. You don't need worry. You need trust. You need confidence that the same God who came through before is the same God working on your current situation. Right now, fear has a loud voice. It tells you you're unqualified. It tells you you're unprepared. It tells you it's too late. And the more you listen to fear, the smaller you start to feel. But breakthroughs don't come to people who shrink. Breakthroughs come to people who trust even when they're trembling. Faith doesn't mean you won't feel afraid. Faith means you move anyway. It means you step even when the ground looks shaky. It means you try even when doubt is whispering in your ear. God doesn't require perfection, He requires belief. Your breakthrough is waiting on your courage, waiting on your faith, waiting on your willingness to push past the fear. Fear is the gatekeeper to the next level. If you can walk past fear, you enter to everything God already prepared for you. Fear shows you the size of the problem. Faith shows you the size of your God. Fear tells you what could go wrong. Faith tells you why it can go right. And when you shift your focus, your spirit shifts with it. You stop panicking and start expecting. Some of your biggest blessings are on the other side of the what if. But fear keeps you stuck in the same mindset, the same place, the same cycle. Breakthrough comes when you confront that fear and move through it. Your next level requires faith that refuses to bow to fear. That's the kind of faith that opens doors you never imagined. Sometimes you pray, and it feels like heaven is quiet. You ask for answers, and nothing comes. You seek direction, and everything feels foggy. That silence can make you feel forgotten. But God's silence is often the sound of preparation. When builders are finishing a project, the noise stops. The final touches are quiet. And that's how God works. The silence is not rejection, it's refinement. God is getting details in order, aligning situations, setting up outcomes you're not ready to see yet. Preparation seasons are uncomfortable because you don't see progress. You don't feel movement. You don't get updates, but God is shaping your mentality, strengthening your spirit, and maturing your character behind the scenes. That growth is part of the blessing. Sometimes God holds back answers because the version of you asking isn't ready for the version of the blessing coming. You need growth, discipline, healing, or clarity before you can receive what He's bringing. Silence becomes preparation for elevation. The problem is we misinterpret silence. We assume God is done with us when He's actually working on us. We think He's ignoring us when He's actually instructing us without words. Not every lesson comes through noise. Some come through stillness. You're not being ignored. You're being constructed. And when God is finished preparing you, you'll understand why the silence lasted as long as it did. Life becomes heavy when you start trying to control things you were never meant to manage. You're stressing over people's decisions, outcomes you can't predict, and situations you can't change. That weight wasn't meant for your shoulders. God didn't design you to carry that kind of pressure. Your job is obedience. God's job is outcome. When you start taking responsibility for results, you take on stress that doesn't belong to you. That's why you feel emotionally drained and spiritually overwhelmed. You're carrying assignments that aren't yours. There are things in your life that you need to release mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Trying to control everything doesn't make you strong, it makes you exhausted. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's understanding that if God wanted you in control, He would have made you capable of controlling it. Some of you are trying to manage things God specifically told you to cast onto Him. You keep holding on because you think letting go means giving up. But letting go means trusting the one who can see what you can't. It means trusting that He can do more with it than you ever could. When you release what you can't control, that's when peace enters. That's when clarity shows up. That's when your mind finally gets room to rest. Holding everything together is not your assignment. Trusting God with what you can't carry is. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is making space for God to move the way He's been trying to move all along. Nothing you've gone through has been random. You may not understand it now, but every challenge had a purpose. Every setback had a lesson. Every disappointment had a redirection. God doesn't waste the pain you experience. He weaves it into your destiny. Your struggle shaped you. It built resilience, strength, and wisdom in you. You learned things from your hardship that you never would have learned in comfort. You gained perspective that comfort could never give you. The struggle grew you in ways you didn't even recognize. Some of the things you pray for require the strength you only gain through the struggle. You can't step into your next season with the mindset from your last season. The struggle upgraded your mindset. It refined your thinking. It sharpened your spirit. God is using everything you went through as part of the bigger plan. What felt like destruction was actually instruction. What felt like delay was actually development. What felt like loss was actually set up for something greater. His strategy is bigger than your understanding. The enemy thought your struggle would break you, but God used it to build you. The very thing that was meant to destroy you became the foundation for your next level. That's how strategic God is. He turns pain into preparation. Your struggle wasn't punishment. It was preparation for the strength you need for the blessings on the way. Breakthroughs often feel the hardest right before they come. That pressure you feel, that heaviness, that intensity, it's not evidence of failure, it's evidence of closeness. Things get tight before they open. Things get dark before the light breaks through. You're feeling the weight because you're near the finish line. The enemy always attacks the hardest when elevation is near. He wants to distract you, discourage you, and drain you right before you step into what you've been praying for. He's fighting because he sees what's coming. When you're close to breakthrough, everything feels like it's falling apart. But that's spiritual resistance. That's pressure from the transition. That's the enemy throwing his last attempts. The storm intensifies because the season is about to shift. Don't misinterpret pressure as defeat. Pressure is a sign that something powerful is happening in the unseen. It's a sign that your faith is shaking up spiritual territory. It's a sign that God is pulling you into a new level. Pressure is proof of progress. You might feel tired, overwhelmed, or discouraged right now, but that's exactly how people feel right before something breaks open. You're not stuck, you're stretching. You're not losing, you're leveling up. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through. You're closer than you think, and everything you're feeling right now is confirmation that the breakthrough is already forming. Storms come fast and unexpected. They shake your peace. They shake your confidence. They shake your plan. But storms are temporary, they don't last. And you can't let temporary moments make you doubt a God whose power is permanent and unchanging. Emotions shift during storms. Fear rises. Doubt rises, anxiety rises. But the storm does not change who God is. The storm doesn't weaken his authority. The storm doesn't reduce his power. God remains the same whether the sky is clear or thundering. The problem is that we often magnify the storm more than we magnify God. We look at the waves, the winds, the chaos, and we forget the one who controls it all. The storm feels bigger only when your focus is on the storm instead of the Savior. You've gone through storms before and made it out. You've faced situations where you didn't know what to do, and God carried you through every one of them. This storm is no different. It feels big because you're inside it, but God sees beyond it. A storm might delay you, but it cannot defeat you. A storm might shake you, but it cannot stop what God has ordained. A storm might scare you, but it cannot silence the power God put inside you. Temporary winds don't cancel permanent promises. Don't let a passing season make you forget the strength of the God who has never failed you. You're stressing about things that God already resolved. You're losing sleep over situations heaven already handled. God is not figuring things out. He already has the solution. You're just walking toward what he has already completed. You're worried because you don't see the answer yet. But God doesn't show the answer all at once. He reveals it piece by piece. By the time you get there, the provision is already in place. The path is already clear. The blessing is already prepared. God goes ahead of you. He sets things up before you arrive. He touches hearts before you encounter them. He aligns opportunities before you need them. He softens situations before you face them. You're stressing about a battle that God has already won. You don't see the full picture yet, and that's why worry tries to take over. But God is not reacting. He's orchestrating. He's not adjusting. He's arranging. He's not scrambling. He's securing. Your timeline is catching up to a miracle that already exists. Your anxious thoughts are imagining worst-case scenarios, but God has already chosen the best-case outcome for you. What feels uncertain to you is already settled in heaven. What feels unstable to you is already supported by God. You're walking into a future that God has already prepared, protected, and perfected. Your mind is racing because you're trying to figure out everything at once. You're replaying situations, overthinking outcomes, worrying about possibilities. But God sees the whole picture. You only see a small piece. That's why you feel overwhelmed. Your vision is limited, but God's plan isn't. You have to learn to let your mind rest. Peace isn't the absence of problems. Peace is trusting that God is handling the problems. When you take your hands off situations you can't control, your mind finally gets room to breathe. God is not asking you to solve everything. He's asking you to trust him in everything. The more you try to take back control, the more stressed you feel. But the moment you release it, you feel the weight lift. You feel your spirit settle. You feel peace returning. Every time you relax your mind, you create space for God to speak. Stress drowns out his voice. Anxiety blocks clarity. But when you quiet your spirit, that's when you start hearing direction. That's when you start feeling guided instead of scared. You don't have to know every detail. You don't have to figure out every step. You just have to trust the one who's already ordered your steps. When you stop stressing, you stop resisting what God is doing. You let him lead without interference. Relax your mind because God is in control and he's working on things you don't even see yet.